Hello, everyone. It's Cassandra Williamson. I am finishing up supper. Kind of inhale it when you can around here, you know. I fixed some stuff for mom. It was, let me see. Oh, shoot. What? Mashed potatoes and my brain is going kaput these days. Mac and cheese with some spaghetti. Put it on her plate. Set it down in front of her. She said, I don't think I'm real hungry. I said, Mom, just eat whatever you want or set it aside, however, whatever you want to do. So, yeah, she didn't want to eat for supper. And my sister did, though. She got hers and I had mine. That's what got me. Some of the salad with ranch dressing on it. Piece of salad. Decided to hang up right down in there somewhere. Ooh, wow. Hold on a minute. I got to get something. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you for letting me take a short break to catch my breath. Whew. So I got a couple of books back here that I've read most. Well, no, actually, I've got a couple of those to read yet. These are my active lists over here. Okay, so I start out with The Left Hand of Darkness. It's an older book. I haven't read that yet. Should have. And Strong Man, which is really pretty good. It's actually real good. If you haven't read it, you probably should. It's by Ruth Ben-Ghiat. I don't know if you can read it. It might be backwards to you there. But anyway, so this is with a new epilogue, Mussolini to the present. So she has studied authoritarianism and fascism and all those kind of isms like that and how they're based on the strong man kind of image. Well, this book explores that. She is a historian, a speaker, a political commentator for CNN occasionally. Haven't seen her on there lately, though. She's a professor of history and Italian studies at New York University and lives in New York City. So check it out. Check it out when you get a chance. You should take a look at it and read it. I've got a few places highlighted through here and marked that I wanted to kind of look into a little bit further. Starts out, obviously, studying authoritarianism. And I'll be honest with you, most businesses, particularly if they have been created by an individual and, you know, they're sole proprietorships and go up into corporation form and all that kind of stuff. The boss or the leader, the founder of these things tend to be more authoritarian sometimes. Yeah, they get bigger and bigger and bigger and then become less and less authoritarian if they want to survive for any length of time. They start looking for alternative views and extra views, and you know, diverse views really matter, especially to the success of organizations. Those organizations that have a tendency to close off diversity, to shut it out of the way, and to claim that it is not important, typically don't last very long. Now, you're going to say the Chinese are prolific and they're not diverse. True, but they also have 1 billion people. And their army is the size of our whole country. And they've got more millionaires living in China than there are millionaires living in the United States by a long shot. So, yeah. They've learned how to toy with the system, okay, to play it in certain ways. So anyway, this book takes you kind of looking into some of those things. The Strong Man book by Ruth Ben-Ghiat. And like I said, she does a really good job in here. Take a look at it sometime. You should read it. You should read it. Whether you agree with it or not, you should read it and see if you can find kind of something that might be applicable to what we're living through today. If not, just throw it aside and read it later. Go back to it later. Let me see what else is back here on the shelf. That one. This thing here is just what have you done for Alabama today? That's something they gave me when I was down there working with them on different projects and things. And this is before my warranty runs out. I don't know if how many of you know who this person is, okay, but this is Joanna, Sister Mary Elizabeth Clark. How many of you know who she is? She's in her upper 80s now. She's in her upper 80s. Met her. She's a really phenomenal person. I walked into her computer room and it was like being in a Star Trek command center because the thing, it was just amazing. That's just stuff all folded in around you. She let me sit down in the command desk. This is a couple of years ago. I don't even know if she's still around. I haven't heard from her in a while. I hope she's all right. I hope Joanna's all right. She's a really strong thinker. She'd been involved in all kinds of stuff over the years. She's a veteran of the Navy and of the Army. Yes, which is ironic. But she enlisted in the Navy in the 1950s, folks. Enlisted in the Navy in the 1950s. And yeah, served in the Navy until the 60s, somewhere in the upper 60s, got out as a chief, an E7, got out as an E7 in the Navy, began working for large corporations on their electronics and stuff like that. She's huge into electronics. You should get this book too. You can find it. It's Before My Warranty Runs Out, Human, Transgender, Environmental Rights Advocate. Joanna is a really strong person to talk to. I hope she's all right, though. I haven't spoken to her in a long time. It's published by Transgender Publishing in Canada. Okay. Transgenderpublishing.ca for Canada. But you can find it, I'm sure. I think she sent this copy to me, actually. But yeah, I mean, this is a good book to have on hand, too, because it kind of gives you some of the people who have been involved in this stuff for a long time. So she went through the Navy and enlisted in the 1950s. That's back when my dad was in the Navy. And got out of the Navy, she was a big-time electronics person and all that. She was big time into all that kind of technology stuff. So much so that she was working as a contractor with the United States Army in California, doing stuff with the colonel there of a particular Army base. And she had transitioned. After she got out of the Navy, she transitioned completely, physically in every way, to Joanne. And living that way, worked for the Army that way as a contractor. And then the Army asked her, in California, they asked her, look, why don't you just come on in and get a commission in the Army, because we could use you full time here. We could just bring you on board. And so they allowed her to come in as herself, as Joanne Clark. She enlisted, she put herself back into the military as an officer in the Army. And then about a couple of years after all that, somebody at the Pentagon found out that this person, Joanne Clark, had served in the Navy as a man. So they went after her for lying and all kinds of stuff like that. But her command stood up for her. Command stood up for her because she hadn't been hiding anything from anyone. She had told them completely everything about who she was, that she'd come out of the Navy, got her honorable discharge out of the Navy as an E7, got out working for the Army. And the Army asked her to come back out in California. So she began working for the Army as Joanne. And she had not lied one time about it. It's just that the Pentagon had never heard of her. And they hadn't caught wind of her yet. But when they did they demanded that she be kicked out and dishonorably discharged. But when they finally did the review of her record, they found that they couldn't discharge her for dishonorable, with a dishonorable discharge or anything other than she couldn't be discharged at all unless it was an honorable discharge. So they offered to her an honorable discharge out of the Army after a couple years of serving in the Army as Joanne. So she had 2 honorable discharges, one as a male in the Navy and one as a female in the Army. And she was a trailblazer, folks. She became a sister. I'm not sure what particular faith that was, but she, don't recall actually. Yeah, Episcopalian. She's Episcopalian sister. It's on the back of the book. But so she joined the clergy and became a sister of the Episcopalian women in the church. So she was able to do all those things because, one, she wasn't lying or hiding anything from anybody. She went in as herself. She enlisted in the Navy, got out, worked in electronics, joined the Army at their request, them knowing exactly who she was, all the way up to the colonel who ran the base. And then she got out with her honorable discharge and made front page news in California, wherever it was at the time, back in the late 70s, I think. Yeah, when she was asked to get out of the Army. Doesn't that remind you of something like the Albert Cashier story from back in the Civil War? Albert enlisted in the United States Army, when fought in the Civil War as a man, had been living as a man for the year prior to all this. So it was complete knowledge. They knew who they were, but joined the Army as a man, served, fought at Vicksburg, got out, was captured by the Confederate Army, held prisoner, and then escaped and went back to serve with the unit that she had been captured from, and continued his honorable service, and then got out after the close of the war, got the pension and all of that kind of thing because, done a great job. All the way up until 1910 or so, when an accident occurred and she had to go to the doctor, and the doctor said, "Oh, no, you are anatomically female. Oh, no, we're going to tell the Army." And the Army, sure enough, when they found out, they stripped away his pension. They stripped away his pension, took it away from him. But the thing is, all of his buddies came to his defense, much like what Joanne went through in the 1970s. The base, the Army personnel in California, all came to her defense because they knew who she was. They knew her background, but she was also extremely good at her job. Albert was good at his job with his unit in the Civil War, folks. So when the Army rescinded his pension and all of his buddies clambered together and finally got the Army to reinstate the pension, well, the doctors wouldn't let her out of the insane asylum that they had forced him into. They'd forced him into an insane asylum and made him wear dresses. Why? Because they thought that they could fix this person. They thought that, like they were trying to do with people who are left-handed, they put left-handed people in insane asylums. If they refused to try even to attempt, or couldn't possibly ever write with their left hand, their right hand, they couldn't write with their right hand. They were left-handed. It's godly, it's biblical. It was biblical. Only the right hand of God is accepted before God, right? Right? People believed that stuff, folks. There were left-handed people all over this country who were sent away because they could not write with their right hand. These things happened all the way up until the 1960s. In the 60s, folks, when Joanne, serving as a man, was in the Navy in the early 1960s, in the 60s. Serving as himself as an enlisted man in the Navy, got out, got his discharge as a chief, and then was asked to join the Army because of his technical skills in electronics, because of her technical skills at that point. This stuff, we've been doing this forever. This is Joanne. Like I said before, she's in her mid 80s now, probably mid to upper 80s at that. I think she was 86 or 87 when I got to meet her in California 3 or 4 years ago. So I hope she's all right. I haven't spoken to her in a while. Now, I would love to have met Albert Cashier. These people are the examples that show us that you're not going to change us, folks. You're not going to be able to run over us and think that we're just going to crawl away and hide. That is not the way this works. We are who we say we are. And you're just going to have to get over that fact. You have no control over that. You can slap me on the left hand, on my wrist on the left hand, and I'm still going to write with I can write with both hands. Less so with left than right. But when I was in school, I went to school in the 60s, mid 60s, in elementary school. And I used my right hand then. And there were teachers here, if you used your left hand, they made a big deal out of it. It wasn't based on fact. It wasn't based on science. It was only based on their ideological perspective of what it meant to be sitting at the right hand of God. So when Alan Turing, now I love talking about these stories, and I know many of you have heard them over and over and over again, but I'll keep telling them because you're not going to change who we are. No matter what you think, no matter how much you kind of pretend that you know more than we do, it's going to quickly become clear to you, or it should at least, that you're not going to change us. And we're not asking anybody to change for us either. Albert never asked anyone to change anything for him. Joanne didn't either. She just went in there and did her stuff, did her work, transitioned completely after her Navy service, went in the Army, got out, had 2 honorables under 2 different names and 2 different genders or sexes. Let me put it that way. And genders too. They are not the same, but they're related. Y'all got that? Y'all know that, right? Right? Slap us on the wrist because we try to tell people and convince them that gender and sex are related, but not the same. They're not synonymous with each other. It's like we hear it so many times. They'll use confusing words. They'll confuse the words, like they'll say gender when they meant biological sex, or they'll say biological sex when they meant gender, and all those things. But it's up to us to point out that we know more today than we did yesterday, folks. We know a lot more today. We knew it 100 years ago. Albert knew it. Joanne knew it. So what kind of social contagion would have caused Joanne to transition in the 60s, late 60s, to become the woman who got an honorable discharge out of the Army, an intelligent electronics technician? There were no such things that would have caused it, folks. It's just who she was and is. I hope everything's well with her. I'm going to have to reach out to her now. It's been a while. But Joanne is one of those exemplars in this community. She hasn't been a force out here trying to force things on people. She's lived her life. She hasn't been somebody who runs up to a desk somewhere and says, "How dare you use the wrong name for me or the pronoun for me?" No, she's approaches everything with grace. That's who she is. I know this because I spent some time talking to her in her home in California, in Long Beach. A great person, a great American. As a matter of fact, she developed one of the systems that was incorporated into a university system that tracked the original how AIDS was impacting people across in the 80s. She developed a system that tracked all of those things, created it, and it got incorporated and bought out by somebody else. Okay, I don't know all the details of that, but she had built this huge database of what was going on with AIDS and helped put a big spotlight on it. I can see that. She was extremely engaged and extremely intelligent, but she never associated much with a lot of trans people either. She wasn't out here marching in the streets. She wasn't out there trying to make noise and throw rocks at police. Neither was Albert. Albert was Albert. Joanne is Joanne. Didn't go out there and do all that stuff. And the only reason you know of Joanne and the only reason you're hearing about Albert Cashier is because I'm telling their stories. These are the people who are the examples that we should be following, folks. We don't need to be out here in the middle of the street throwing a bunch of crap at people. It does not work. It actually becomes much more of a problem than a solution. You do nothing except put a bullseye on the entire community because you aren't following in the steps of people like Joanne Clark, Sister Mary Elizabeth Clark of the Episcopalian Sisters. She's not one of these people who's been out here clamoring and yelling at people to accept her for who she is. She lived who she is, and that's how people accepted her. That's just the way it works. She wasn't being abusive or mean, and no doubt she was mistreated and all this kind of stuff in certain places, but I suspect that it was not a big deal to her. I suspect that she just lived her life and let others live their life. The reason you haven't heard about her too much, this one, because that's what she was doing. She was raising her family. She was listening to she was focused on the things that mattered to her, like HIV stuff and AIDS, environmental issues. She wrote extensively to a lot of places. She asked me repeatedly over the past number of years how she can help and who she can write, and whether or not I wanted her to fax a ton of letters to senators and representatives. But she wasn't involved with a lot of stuff. She wasn't marching in the middle of the streets. She wasn't yelling and cursing at people who refused to accept her as herself because she knew who she was. She was confident in that. She didn't need to. I don't need to. I do not need to be out here marching in the middle of the street. I have done that. Yes, I've marched. Yes, I've been in the middle of the street. I live in the middle of the street. I'm just, who you see is who I am. Take it or leave it. That's on you. But I do know that the moment someone in this community starts throwing rocks at people, spitting in people's faces, pulling knives on people, shooting up stuff, and using sparklers to try to set things on fire and cause chaos and damage in places, you no longer become like this person who accomplishes great things from behind the scenes and you've never heard of her. You've probably never heard of her. There's a handful of people who knew of Sister Elizabeth, Mary Elizabeth Clark. A handful of people. They'd never met her. They'd never really spent a lot of time talking to her. She wrote some things that ended up in some magazines early on, but she was not interested in lighting things on fire and watching it burn down to the ground. So find out more about this person right here. Go read up on Albert Cashier. Go read up on Alan Turing, the gay man who helped us win World War II because he was able to crack the Enigma code the Germans were using. But when they discovered he was gay, and it wasn't an issue while he was actually in the midst of solving that problem. It wasn't an issue in the 40s. It only became an issue after 1947 or 46. Whenever they rewrote the definition for homosexuality in the Bible, they used a made up word to translate it into homosexuality, and it never meant that to start out with, but it became a symbol, a focus on things like, the whole lavender scare thing in the 50s where they kicked out 20,000 gays and lesbians out of the federal government for security reasons. They rounded up Alan Turing because, obviously being gay was a security threat, and they thought maybe they could cure the man. And instead, what they did was destroy him. Electroshock therapy. But thank goodness, Sister Mary Elizabeth never went through that. There are people in this world today, right here in the United States, who want to do the same things again, who would go after the pension of people like Albert Cashier, who have served honorably in the military today, kicked out viciously and with much callous and cruelty, kicked out with people clamoring to take away their benefits and take away everything and take away their health care and all of that stuff. Why? Well, because they want to be able to slap all the left-handed people on the wrist and put them in insane asylums. They want to fulfill the command of their chosen God. That's where all that stuff arose from. That's where it came from. So yeah, it kind of pisses me off. It does. So that makes me a trans terrorist from Mud Lick. Mud Lick Road in Hardy, Kentucky. I am still tired from the long trip. I left Friday afternoon and went down to South Carolina, stayed in a hotel in Clanton, South Carolina, drove down to Lake City, Florida on Saturday morning, went to see my friend who didn't know I was there, held her hand. I brought her a little Buc-ee's stuffed chipmunk or whatever that darn thing is. About that tall. Took it to her, put it beside her on her arm. She smiled a couple of times, mumbled a couple of things, and never understood a word. I don't even know that she knew I was there hardly. If she did, it sure didn't show. But Bobby is the same way. Bobby Reed. Bobby is not interested in, was never interested in taking, she has been post-op trans for 30 years. 25, 30 years. She has never been one to want to go out here and just go all over everything and make a big deal out of the fact that she had transitioned. She just lived her life. Every time I would raise up something about doing something like that, she would try to rein me in and say, Cassandra, now you don't want to go that far down the road with that. I mean, why not just be yourself and just let it at that? And I said, look, I speak for a lot of other people. You know, I'm one of those, I didn't tell her this at the time because she had mental acuity and all that had disappeared quite a while back. So she never got to hear me call myself a trans terrorist satirically. And my invitation for Kash Patel and Pam Bondi and Dan Bongino and Tim Holman and, you know, VP Bowman Vance to come on down here and have a sit with me on the front porch. And we'll just rock around back here and have some talking. And occasionally we'll say things like, well, bless your little heart. We do that. Actually, we do that more if you go south another 150 miles. Because I tell people, they say, we are in the South. We're in the South. This is part of the South. I say, no, you are border people. You're on the Mason-Dixon line, pretty darn close. Right here in eastern Kentucky. But yeah, tell me all about that. Some of them do know about bless your little heart and all that, but that's stuff you hear from down in yonder, down there in Alabama and Georgia and South Carolina. Yeah, Mississippi. They know what that means. I do too. So if I go around going, well, bless your little heart, Cash, I tell you what, you're just such a special little person. And I mean it sincerely. Pam, oh my God, get that brown stuff off your nose, Pam. You've got your head stuck so far up Trump's butt right now that you can't even see the real world out here. But you're doing everything he wants you to do. I don't know what he's got on these people. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Got to have something on them. Because nobody in their right mind would continue doing what he's asking them to do, Pete. Pete? Hey, Pete, do you hear me? Hey, Pete, come on. Did you see a speech where he was talking to the midshipmen or the Navy sometime? It was today or yesterday or something. And they were all real excited about seeing him, which is good. I mean, it was just fine. I have no problem with that. He can be a rabble rouser all he wants and raise the crowds up and get them all excited like Trump can. And Trump can't stay on topic, though. That's the thing. He just goes all over the place like I do. I guess it's maybe because we're older and we can actually see things and see around the corner. A lot of people much younger than us or younger than us can't see around the corner. And it's easy to see when they can't see around the corner. It really is. Maybe that's going to be my new slogan from up here on Mud Lick. Cassandra can actually tell you to bless your heart while she's looking around the corner and mean every word of it. A depth of perception that doesn't include, diverse perspectives. So I'm going to leave you with this little image. This was taken from right near the Metro Diner down in Tuscaloosa and at the Midtown Plaza. I removed the background from this image because, so this is me over on whichever side you're looking at it from. I'm the one in the mini dress over there, purple and all that, blonde hair. Well, I guess it's white. They're just calling me Q-Tip these days. I think I left here saying that. Just call me Q-Tip. That's my grandson in the little red shirt there, the short fella. Very sweet person. I mean, very sweet. And then the girl beside me, that's my youngest daughter, Jordan, and Cameron is the son of the girl in the middle there on the other side. That's Kara. You got Jordan and Kara, and then Christian, who is Kara's oldest son. And he's about to graduate high school here this coming year. Actually, this coming spring. So I'll have 3 grandkids actually graduated high school by the end of the spring this coming year. And that does not make me feel young. It actually makes me feel like saying, well, bless your heart, what the hell happened? But I love my family. They're amazing people. And it's just phenomenal to be able to sit down and like we did on Sunday. I didn't have time to go hang out with them for very long. Because I was in a hurry to get back to Eastern Kentucky to be here because I needed to make sure, if you read the little letter I sent out this afternoon, you can go catch it on the website if you didn't. It's in the blog section. Let me bring this up over here. Yeah. So you can go over to the blog, go to that website, Cassandra-LLC.com, find the blog at the bottom of the menu section there. Go there and read the latest one. It's a day in the life of. It's on Mud Lick, going back to Mud Lick actually after 3 days on the road. I'm going to tell you, I was tired. So we ended up at Metro Diner in Midtown Plaza in Tuscaloosa, right off of Highway 82. And it's right across from the Veterans Memorial there, which I've been there many times, part of ceremonies and stuff over there at that memorial. And I'd love to see one of those. If anybody out there knows how to get all that equipment like jets and tanks and willies and maybe the masts on some smaller frigates and ships and stuff, I'd love to be able to do that right here in Eastern Kentucky along the Tug River for the Mingo County, West Virginia people and the Pike County, Kentucky people. And, make it a big kind of attraction. I can get the land. I know somebody who basically owns most of the land around here, it seems to me like these days, other than the mining companies. But, and create a Veterans Memorial for people in this region of Eastern Kentucky, Southern West Virginia, and it's actually Southwestern Virginia too. We're all right here in this area. And it would be so cool to be able to have this big place that people can go over and drive through and walk through and see the names of people who have served in all the various wars that we've been involved in. Their family members on there. My family would be on there in multiple places. Oh my God, would we ever? Going all the way back to the Revolutionary War and probably the French and Indian too, but I haven't found any records to indicate that yet. But I do know about the Revolutionary War on both sides of the family, multiple sides of the family, as well as the War of 1812. Don't know about the Mexican war with Texas. I don't know about that, but I do know that we've been involved in everything in the Civil War on both sides of the Civil War. Yeah. So you'd find a lot of people with names like mine, and every ancestor associated with me just about. Let me see. You could have Williamsons and Scaffs and Maynards and Lows and Blevinses, Porters. Yeah. Patrick Porter, the same bunch that you heard about in history. They're all tied to me. The Lees of Virginia, they're all tied to me. You got family here. Robert E. Lee. Ever hear that name? Yep. Related distantly to him. Not to Andrew Jackson. I don't know how we skipped Andrew Jackson, but haven't found any connection to him or to Lincoln, even though Lincoln was born in Kentucky. Yeah, there could be, but I don't know. I haven't dug into that one exactly yet to see. But there's a lot of stuff here, and I'd love to be able to put that memorial in place and recognize the people who have served from here. And if for me, immediately, for myself right here, well, both of the people who are in this picture right here are connected to the military in some way. All three of, well, my grandsons aren't yet, but my youngest daughter, who I'm hugging right there beside me, her fiance is National Guard, former. Kara is not, but her father-in-law was in the Navy, who's passed since. Let me see. Me, Navy and Marine Corps on my side. Their brother, my son, was in the Air Force for 9.5 years or so, and flew Predators, and had racked up a record that I had never seen a record in HVKs, high value kills, associated with anyone like that. They had put his name on a plaque in his squadron, and I happened to see it. I was there, and I see it, and I said, "Son, make sure with a number like that you're actually considering getting some help when you get out of the military. Oh my God, please do." And then my son-in-law is also Army, been to is Army, and been to the Middle East twice, Afghanistan once, and Iraq another time. And he is a fierce, proud American with 100% disability now, from all kinds of different things, physical issues as well as PTSD, and it all added up. And he's 100% disabled, even though he's still in the National Guard. The craziest thing about my son-in-law is he told me one time he was going to give up the commission. He had a commission in the Army where he went to college for that. He was going to give it up so he could go into combat. He wanted to get to Afghanistan. He wanted to get over there in the Middle East. And I said, you want to do that? You're going to leave my daughter and your kids here? But he was adamant about it, and I'm glad he came back safely. And I know he had a tough time with a lot of the stuff that was going on there, as did most people. Okay. Lots and lots of people dealt with PTSD and all of that. He's got 100% rating for physical as well as psychological for PTSD, and I'm just 30%. And I can't even imagine how much he had to go through to get to that 100%, because 30 was a lot for me. That was traumatic just for me. That 30%, that was hugely, goodness. Still dealing with all of that, especially here. So I've talked a lot about all kinds of things today, and I just want to leave you with this thought, okay? Let me get off of my family there. I'm hugely proud of my family, and they work so hard down in Tuscaloosa and then in Kansas, and my son's in Arizona. He's actually flying high altitude balloons. Flew one across from Arizona all the way over to off the coast of New York, I believe, for some activities that were taking place with the United Nations, a military operation with the United Nations. They contracted my son's company to go over there and have some communications equipment on a satellite about 68,000 feet in the air. I said, "How'd you get it across there?" And he goes, "Well, we had to avoid large populated areas. And we had to spend a lot of time in the Gulf of Mexico." He called it the Gulf of Mexico, even though on official documents these days it's called the Gulf of America. Yuck. Anyway. Oh my gosh, people. I got to go check on Mom. I don't think she ate any of the food I gave her. I have to see what I can do. This morning she didn't eat either, but I had to give her some Ensure to help her through the day. Because Ensure's got like 220 calories in that one particular bottle. It's got a little sugar in there, but it's got all the nutrients she needs too. So if she's not going to eat, I'm going to have to give her another bottle of that chocolate flavored Ensure. When I check her vitals again around 7, which is 20 minutes or so from now. Get everybody lined up again. And the funniest thing last night when I got back in about 12:30 last night, and Mom was in bed, my brother was asleep, my sister was in the shower. She takes showers just about every night, which is good. She takes a shower after everyone else has gone to sleep. That way we all wake up about 4:30 in the morning and she's got the lights on in the house, getting the shower out of the way. And that's when everybody wakes up. But so I'm sitting, I made it back to my bed, unpacked and everything, and lie down in bed. And I wasn't in bed maybe 30 minutes. And the alarm goes off. The medical alert system goes off. And I'm thinking, well, what happened? Mom fall on the floor again? Or maybe something happening with Irma, or Gideon's all right, or whatever. And I go in there and check. Mom's all right. Gideon's all right. It was Irma. She was throwing up just a little bit, or trying to. She was coughing. And so she pointed at the garbage can behind her chair. And I had to move it over closer for her. It's a little hard for her to get. I know, when she's throwing up and sitting in a chair. Yeah, I know it's a challenge for her sometimes, but it's funny for me because she's very neat and organized with everything in her room and everything where she goes. And I've got some amazing family, people, even some extended family, and even some family that I've chosen to be family. And Sister Mary Elizabeth Clark is one of them. If I had known Albert Cashier, he would have been one of those people I would have considered family. And if I'd known Alan Turing, well, he would have thought of me as somebody who just needed to bring him some coffee. Because he was a world-class genius who got his wrist slapped for being left-handed. Well, bless your heart, folks. We're going back on Mud Lick Road. We'll come back.